Welcome back, everybody. This is Kieran Singer here at Undead Storyteller with a solo story for you today. This is a true account of one man's encounter with something horrifically spooky while out in the woods late at night. Let me know in the comments what you think it was that crossed his path and how lucky you think that he was to have survived. I won't waste your time with a ton of promos today, though of course the link to the merchandise shop is available both in the description along with the comments, as well as the link to the memberships page, my email for those with the personal horror stories that they would like to share, and anything else you might wish to look at. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you enjoy today's video. If you do, please do me a favor and hit like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you'll always be up to date when new content is released. Now, get ready to embrace the terror, everyone, and here we go. I'm a hunter. Though I have been deer hunting and have been known to get a turkey for Thanksgiving, I mostly hunt boar. For those of you who don't know, boar are a big problem in the United States. A sow can have 2 litters a year, and it's not uncommon for a litter to consist of 10 or more piglets. Given that pigs eat anything and everything, it's not hard to see why the Department of Fish and Wildlife makes it legal to hunt them with almost no restrictions. In my state, it's illegal to hunt for most large mammals with night or thermal vision scopes, with the exception of boar and coyote. I had been saving for a year, mostly fun money. It's hard to explain to your wife that a scope costs twice as much as the rifle that you're mounting it on, but I did it. There was an area that was peppered with boar activity, and I knew that it would be perfect for a night hunt. It was accessible with my truck, and had plenty of easy-to-find spots where I could set up that overlooked a large clearing. Everything started off uneventful. It was mostly me tinkering with my new toy, cycling through the settings. I was a little impatient. I had spotted multiple deer, but they were out of season, and like I mentioned earlier, my current setup wasn't legal for deer. I moved to another spot that I had come upon days prior. It probably wasn't much better than my first, but it gave me something to do and a new angle to look around from through the new scope. After another hour or so of glassing the area, it dawned on me that there wasn't much animal activity at all. No rabbits or owls, and the deer that I had seen before were hundreds of yards away from where I was. Why was this pocket of land so dead at night, yet so lively during the day? When I set up, it was around 10 p.m., and it was around 2 in the morning when I started to think about packing up, maybe setting up a target before I left, and taking some practice shots. That's when I heard a crunch coming from behind me. I panned my scope over and saw the silhouette of a small bear pushing through the bushes. It's important to note that my scope isn't exactly night vision. It's a thermal scope, kind of like a black and white version of what you see in the movies. I adjusted my range, zoomed in a little. I remember getting startled when I saw that it wasn't really a bear, but a man. Because of how low and hunched over he was in the underbrush, I had mistaken him for a young bear. I wondered if it might have been a game warden, but it couldn't be. I would have seen the headlights coming up the road from where I was perched. And where would he have walked in from? I was 30 miles away from anything and on public lands. I was about to call out when I adjusted my sights again and noticed that he was naked. I remember being disturbed by his movements. He He was twitching and jerking around like a squirrel, grabbing at the foliage, sniffing around and palming a tree. I couldn't be 100% certain, but I could have sworn that it was the same tree that I had been leaning against earlier. Could he smell me? The thought was terrifying. Then he did something that I still have nightmares about. He squatted and placed his hands in the dirt between his feet, then stared straight up at the sky like a dog mid-howl. And I heard it. A voice coming from that direction. A very compelling female voice, crying out for help, saying that she was lost. There was a long pause. Neither of us moved a muscle. The center of my sights was trained at the dirt in front of his feet. I couldn't bring myself to aim directly at another person. It went against everything that I had been taught about firearms. Was this person truly lost? Was it some guy who had gone crazy out here in the woods? Why was the voice so feminine? It called out again, this time begging more desperately, claiming to be unable to walk. This, I knew, was a lie. Not only could he walk, when I first saw him he was traversing the land with ease, especially for a naked person. So much so that I had mistaken him for an animal. It had to be a trap. This guy or this thing was trying to lure me in with a damsel in distress routine. Luckily, because of the lack of activity before, I had already packed up most of my gear. I took my eyes off of him for a moment to get my pack. I buckled my chest strap, scrambled for my rifle. To my horror, he was in the exact same position, but his face was staring in my direction, and he was smiling. To add more off-putting effect to the scenario, the thermal scope makes animal eyes appear white. Then, I began to wonder how he had heard me get up and put my gear on. He was at least 150 yards away. I screamed in that direction for him to leave. He stood upright, and it hit me how tall and skinny that he was. He was over 6 feet tall, very lean. He took a couple of long strides in my direction, and I instinctively sent a round sailing above his head into the tree line. He was freaky, but he hadn't really threatened me. What would I have told the cops? I was just unwilling and unready to shoot someone. He stopped dead in his tracks and got back down on all fours. I yelled at him that the next bullet would bring him down, and this time I had my sights trained on the center of his abdomen. His eyes were just above the grass like a large cat. I was trying to stop my hand from trembling, and I knew that my voice had cracked a little on that last warning. What can I say? I had surpassed the worst levels of fear that I had experienced up to that point. The standoff lasted only a minute, maybe 2, but it felt like forever. In an instant, he bolted left toward the tree line opposite the road. He moved so fast that I could barely keep him in my scope. He disappeared into the brush, and I sent another bullet sailing high in his direction. I racked another round, and tried to pocket that mag, swap it out for a fresh one, but I dropped it and didn't bother to look for it. I wasn't far from my truck, and more than anything, I wanted to get out of there. I could hear him in the distance, screaming and making this weird sound that could either have been a laugh or a cry. I hauled ass up the trail and arrived at my truck, breathless. I tossed my gear into the cab, but kept the rifle in the passenger seat and sped off. For the longest time, I only told that story from the perspective of having spotted some deranged crackhead living off the land as a caveman. I reported it to Fish and Game, but all they did was scold me for hunting at night alone, and I never received an update. It wasn't until I told this story while on a camping trip that my nephew told me about Wendigos, rakes, and skinwalkers. My story nearly made him come out of his skin because the spot where we were camping was technically part of the same forest where I had seen the creature, just 50 miles east of the exact spot. He was so spooked that his mom, my cousin, had to take him home. She wasn't happy, to say the least. Since then, I've gone down the rabbit hole with these scary stories. I'm not saying that what I saw definitely was a cryptid. I'm saying that if such a thing exists, I may have dodged quite the bullet myself that night.